Yes, Miss Witch said. He is behind the darkness, so that even we cannot see him. Meg began to cry, to sob out loud. Through her tears, she could see Charles Wallace standing there, very small, very white. Calvin put his arms around her, but she shuddered and broke away, sobbing wildly. Then she enfolded in the great wings of Mrs. Whatsit, and she felt comfort and strength pouring through her. Miss Whatsit was not speaking aloud, and yet through the wings Miss Meg understood words. My child, do not despair. Do you think we would have brought you here if there were no hope? We were asking you to do a difficult thing, but we are confident that you can do it. Your father needs help. He needs courage. And for his children, he may be able to do what he cannot do for himself. Now, Miss Witch said, are we ready? Where are we going? Calvin asked. Again, Meg felt an actual physical tingling of fear as Miss Witch spoke. We must go behind the shadow. But we will not do it all at once, Miss Whatsit comforted them. We will do it in short stages. She looked at Meg. Now we will test her. We will wrinkle again. Do you understand? No, Meg said flatly. Miss Whatsit sighed. Explanations are not easy when there are about things for which your civilization still has no words. Calvin talked about traveling at the speed of light. You understand that, little Meg? Yes, Meg nodded. That, of course, is impractical. Long way around, we have learned to take shortcuts whenever possible. Sort of like math? Meg asked. Like in math. Miss Whatsit looked over to Miss Who. Take your skirt and show them. La experiencia es la madre de la ciencia. Spanish, my dear Advertes. Experience is the mother of knowledge. Miss Who took a portion of her white robe in her hands and held it tight. You see, Miss Whatsit said, if a very small insect were to move from a section of a skirt in Miss Who's right hand to the left, it would be quite a long walk for him if we had to walk straight across. Swiftly Miss Who brought together hands, still holding. Now, you see, he would be there without the long trip. This is how we travel. Charles Wallace accepted the explanation serenely. Even Calvin did not seem perturbed. Oh dear, Meg sighed. I guess I am a moron. I just don't get it. That is because you think of space only in 3 dimensions, Miss Whatsit told her. We traveled in the 5th dimension. This is something you can understand, Meg. Don't be afraid to try. Was your mother able to explain the tesseract to you? Well, she never did. She got so upset it. Why, Miss Whatsit? She said it had something to do with her and father. It was a concept they were playing with, Miss Whatsit said, going beyond the 4th dimension to the 5th. Did your mother explain it to you, Charles? Well, yes. Charles looked a little embarrassed. Please don't be hurt, Meg. I just kept it out a while you were still at school till I got it out of her. Meg sighed. Just explain it to me. Okay, Charles Wallace said. What was the 1st dimension? Well, a line. Okay, the 2nd dimension? Well, you'd square the line. A flat square would be in the 2nd dimension. And the 3rd? Well, you'd square the 2nd dimension. Then the square wouldn't be flat anymore. It would have a bottom, sides, and a top. And the 4th? Well, I guess if you want to put it into mathematical terms, you'd square the square. But you can't take a pencil and draw it the way you took it the first 3. I know it's something to do with Einstein and time. I guess maybe you could call the 4th dimension time. That's right, Charles said. Good girl. Okay then, for the 5th dimension you'd square the 4th, wouldn't you? I guess so. Well, the 5th dimension's a tesseract. You add that to the other 4 dimensions and you can travel through space without having to go the long way around. In other words, to put it into elucid or old-fashioned plane geometry, a straight line is not the shortest difference between 2 points. For a brief illuminating second, Meg's face had listening, probing the expression that had so often seen on Charles' face. I see, she said. I got it. For just a moment, I got it. I can't possibly explain how, but for a second I saw it. She turned instincting excitedly to Calvin. "Did you get it?" He nodded. If Calvin was still holding her hand, I don't understand it the way Charles Wallace does, but this time she was prepared for the sudden and complete dissolution of her body. When she felt the tingling coming back to her fingertips, she knew that this journey was almost over and she could feel again the pressure of Calvin's hand about hers. Without warning, coming as a complete and unexpected shock, she felt a pressure she had never imagined, as though she were being completely flattened out by an enormous steamroller. This was far worse than the nothingness had been. While she was nothing, there was no need to breathe, now that her lungs were squeezed together, so that although she was dying for want of air, there was no way for her lungs to expand or contract. To take in the air that she must have to stay alive. This was completely different from the thinning of atmosphere when they flew up the mountain and she had to put the flowers to her face to breathe. She tried to gasp, but the paper doll can't gasp. She thought she was trying to think, but her flattened out mind was as unable to function as her lungs. Her thoughts were squashed along with the rest of her. Her heart tried to beat. It gave a knife-like, sidewise movement, but it could not expand. But then she seemed to hear a voice, or if not a voice, at least words flattened out like printed words on paper. "Oh, no, we can't stop here. This is a two-dimensional planet, and the children can't manage here." She was whizzed into nothingness again. And nothingness was wonderful. She did not mind that she could not feel Calvin's hand, that she could not be able to feel or be. The relief of the intolerable pressure was all she needed. Then the tingling began to come back to her fingers, her toes. She could feel Calvin holding her tightly. Her heart beat regularly. Blood coursed through their veins. Whatever had happened, whatever mistake had been made, it was over now. She thought that she heard Charles Wallace say, his words, round, full as spoken words ought to be, "Really, Miss Witch, you might have killed us?" This time she was pushed out of the frightening fifth dimension, and with a sudden immediate jerk, there she was, herself again, standing with Calvin beside her, holding onto her hand with dear life, and Charles Wallace in front of her, looking indignant. Miss Whatsit, Miss Who, and Miss Witch were not visible, but she knew they were there. The fact of their presence was strong about her. "Children, I apologize," came Miss Witch's voice. "Now, Charles, calm down," Miss Whatsit said, appearing not as great and beautiful beast she had been when they very last saw her, but in a familiar wild garb of shawls and scarves and the old tramp's coat and hat. "You know how difficult it is for her to materialize. If you are not substantial yourself, it's very difficult to realize how limiting plasm is." "I am sorry," Miss Witch's voice came out again, but there was more of a hint of amusement in it. "It is not funny." Charles Wallace gave a childish stamp on his foot. Miss Who's glasses shone out. The rest of her appeared slowly behind them. "We are such stuff as dreams are made on," she growled proudly. "Prospero in the Tempest. I do like that play." "You didn't do it on purpose?" Charles demanded. "Oh, my darling, of course not," Miss Whatsit said quickly. "It was just a very understandable mistake. It's very difficult for Miss Witch to think in a corporeal way. She wouldn't hurt you deliberately. You know that. And it's really a very pleasant planet, and you'd rather amusing to be flat. We always enjoy our visits there." "Where are we now, then?" Charles Wallace demanded. "And why?" "In Orion's Belt. We have a friend here, and we want you to have a look around at your own planet." "When are we going home?" Meg asked anxiously. "What about Mother? What about the twins?"